What is happening, dudes? This is Trent, and today I'm announcing Jak 4. That's right, I'm working on it. It's totally happening, and it's being published by... No, I'm just... That's horrible. I'm sorry. I shouldn't do that. It's not... I'm not working on it. There's no official announcements of the game, and this is just like a fan redesign of Jak and Daxter, one of my most beloved games. I'm sorry, dudes. This is about my dream projects, and one of my dream projects is to design characters and environments for Jak and Daxter, one of the legendary games from, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, from PlayStation history. I was a little bit, I was already a professional game developer by the time that Jak and Daxter 1 first came out, but it had a profound impact on me. I mean, this was from an era of games. A lot of you young dudes, like you didn't get a chance to experience platformers in their heyday, but there was something oh so magical and awesome and styly. I mean, styly. This game had a lot of style to it, and I wouldn't necessarily say that Jak himself had a lot of personality, but Daxter most certainly did, and so I think that there were some talk recently about a remaking or doing a sequel, a Jak 4, with Naughty Dog, and they actually they hired a concept art studio called Scribble Pad, who they tend to do very photorealistic stuff, and some of the images that they had created had leaked or had gotten out, and some people were very unhappy with the results because, and here's the thing that Scribblepad may have not realized at the time, or maybe it could just be that they were instructed to do a realistic approach to the character designs and the environments. Their environments were great, they worked really well, but there was an essence to the characters that was lost. And first of all, Jak is not human. Jak should not try to be human. And what Naughty Dog has become has been a tremendous storytelling studio. They've become so serious about their stories, though, that there's a part of what they used to be that is somewhat lost. And that's not to say they don't have it anymore or in any way like that. I reached out to Bob Raffi, and I'm probably saying his name wrong, but he was the original character designer. From everything that I read online, by all accounts, that he was the character designer, the concept artist from Jak and Daxter 1. And I wanted to talk to him about the essence of the character for this video, but he's not going to be available to talk for a while. And with all of my collaborations that I've been doing, I've just been delaying so many of my own videos. So I was like, yeah, screw it. I'm going to just do my own commentary on what I think Jak and Daxter is and how to preserve the essence of the character in redesigning him. Now, a lot of Jak's early character design elements were, I wouldn't say highly sophisticated, strong storytelling character design elements, but they were iconic to him. They became iconic to him. And I kind of wanted to do like a grisly older version of Jak, as if he's aged, he's been doing this for a while, and so I did reference the main character or the original character design a lot to make sure that I got the likeness down, but I still wanted to age him. I even gave him like a Big Boss style eye patch at one point. His hair gets a little bit greener. There were core elements of what made that character who he was. One, the iconic massive ears coming off. As dynamic and almost droopy as they are, there's still an iconic element from that character. It would be like trying to draw Mickey Mouse. Like if you're redesigning Mickey Mouse, you don't make him literally a mouse. You still have to make him what he is, even if the rest of the world is realistic. And if I were on this project, and the name of this show is Trent's Dream Projects, and if I were designing characters for Jak 4 or for a Jak and Daxter game, this is how much of the original character I would want to keep intact. And I almost think that it would be more effective and more beneficial for Naughty Dog to take an indie studio approach and go minimalistic with it. You could do something like the Outside game that recently came out, or there's a lot of sort of low poly kind of journey inspired indie games that have come out, and I think that might be a good direction to start for Jak and Daxter. It doesn't need to be what The Last of Us is. And I think that that would be what would be so brilliant and beautiful about having it done through Naughty Dog, would be to showcase that range, to say, yeah, we can do these sort of like really artsy indie kind of things on a AAA scale, but they'll have so much style and character and personality that they'll contrast dramatically with our other efforts. And I don't know how that works out in terms of like, allocating resources between teams. That could be problematic, because you want all your artists to be able to help out on the project that's shipping the soonest usually. But getting back to redesigning Jak himself, I really needed to capture like what are the core elements of who Jak is. He always has that sort of ring loop around his chest. It's very iconic to the character. It kind of has to be there. He's always got a kind of an armored shoulder pad, although it almost looks like he's traveled. He's well traveled, so he goes and explores multiple different locations and cultures and environments. And I took a similar approach when I was working on Maximo 3 and revamping a classic character, to try to emphasize their story, but keep the elements that really define who he is. And even here now you can see like I felt it was really important for his story to add in the dark eco kind of a factor, where at one point, I think in Jak 3, he kind of wolfs out into this dark eco version of himself. And I thought, oh, how cool would it be if he like somehow found a way to control it, to contain it, and he actually but it grows out of his arm, you know what I mean? Something of that nature. And it really, for one, the colors worked really well with the purple and his green hair and his normal skin tones. I did warm everything up to try to really bring home the human element of him, even though he's not necessarily human. It is pinkish skin. I used some of my my tricks that I use for painting, like the gradient map kind of a thing, to add color to his design, and a little bit on my edge lighting to really separate out forms. But ultimately, I feel like it captured him, and except for through much of the painting itself, he kind of had a little bit of a smile, which I thought would be a good contrast to his usual frowny thing. But then at some point I was like, no, man, he had to have his kind of frowny face. He's a serious dude, okay? But in that sort of lighthearted kind of a way that I think we've gotten a little bit away from. I mean, he was badass, but in sort of a comical sort of a way. And I think that the best analogy to use would be to look at it like Naughty Dog, like if you're listening, dudes, check it out. I mean, Disney can make some pretty gruesome, realistic, hardcore, emotional, photorealistic films with actors, but then they contrast that with this very strong stylization. And even with this design, I would say I would love to just sit down and design like 20 or 30 more versions of Jak to get a better handle on like what's working, what isn't working. I was kind of teetering on the size of the feet, and you'll see when I get to designing Daxter where he's really the challenge, because so much of his character and personality is in his stylization. But I was still teetering on that, like how big of clown shoes do I give him? Because that was kind of a big thing in the 90s. Like every character had these really heavy graffiti inspired feet and huge clod hopping shoes. I think because of the old Janko jeans and the raver kind of a thing that was going on at the time. And Jak, I think, definitely sort of represented his times, or the times, but he doesn't have to always be that way. It was really just that the studio wanted to move on to do more serious stories, as I understand it. And that's not a bad thing, if they don't feel like they can handle it, man, hey, pass that gig on over to my studio. We'd totally eat that one up. I would love to do a Jak and Daxter game. There was a spin-off about Daxter himself for the PSP, and I played the hell out of that one, and I know a lot of the guys that worked on that one, and not a lot of the guys. I know like 2 dudes who worked on that game, and but Daxter was a challenge because he's not quite a rabbit. I think that he's a weasel and a otter. He's an otzel, otter, and a weasel. I had to look that one up actually. But yeah, so he's not quite any kind of an animal that we have any existing frame of reference for. exactly, and that makes him particularly unique to being drawn the same way. And I tried to redraw him in a different way, but then it just wasn't working. He wasn't Daxter. He wasn't him. He didn't have the same character that he had from the original. And I think that while the Jack redesign is, I feel like that was a pretty confident re-envisioning of him. I don't feel as confident about my Daxter. And but at some point I was reaching like 9 hours on this painting, and I was like, I think it's time to move on. It's time to just like, get this one out the door and move on. And sometimes that's hard to do, but it's essential. Otherwise, you just spend all of your time reworking and reworking. You never really make any progress forward. Another factor is, of course, like the mechanics of the goggles that they have on their heads. I mean, there's so many different ways that could be redesigned to fit more around his eyeballs, and how do those actually, like, what function do they serve? These are things that we didn't really, as character designers back in the early 2000s, we didn't really think as much about. I think that it was beginning to become important. Nowadays, it is so important. People just tear your design to shreds if you don't think about that sort of a thing. And so that's another reason why, my standards are generally somewhere around the realm of what industry expectations are and what I personally enjoy doing myself. But I think that if you were going to redo Jak and Daxter, it really has to be one of those projects of love. You know what I mean? You can't expect it to be a big blockbuster kind of a thing, but there is a pretty loyal fan base to it that would come back to it, I think. I tried something ridiculous with his feet there, where they were itty bitty little pointy things, which is so common these days. Big kind of a long slender body, and then like tiny itsy bitsy little feet. And then technically should have done the shadows before I even got there, but anyway. So in terms of environments, well, you've seen my environments. I go crazy with that stuff, and I'd have so much fun, redesigning the worlds of Jak and Daxter and designing new areas for it. I always love the color palettes. I think that was the biggest thing that I pulled away from the originals. I wasn't a big fan of the open world of Jak 3, but I think that with a little bit more reason to actually explore, that could have been the best one. I would say, yeah, in hindsight, that was probably the best one, in my opinion as a gamer. And I did play them all and loved them all. And so, Naughty Dog, if you're listening, please give me a call and we can work something out to make Jak 4 happen. I would love to do that. I'd love to know your guys' thoughts on this redesign and what you feel like is the core essence of what Jak and Daxter is. Like, did I forget anything? I'm sure I did. But if you are interested if you're an artist and you're interested in learning my process, if you'd like to see a much slower version of this painting and character design, you can go on over to the link below in my Gumroad website, and there I have a ton of tutorials teaching you how to paint like me so that you can just straight up replace me. And, with all that said, I think, is that everything? Yeah. Oh, I almost forgot to mention, I missed you, man. It's been a while since I've done a video, and it feels so good to be back. I will be making a few more. I'm actually recording several videos tonight. So until such time, I will catch you all mañana de bond. And as usual, remember to redesign classic games with passion. All right, dudes. Ciao, baby. Yeah.